Morning all. Let's continue the Capablanca backfire series, which seems to be quite popular at the moment. Let's have a look at the game Capablanca played against Edgar Colle, and actually this is historically, statistically interesting in that it's Capablanca's shortest ever tournament victory. And I think the backfire thing, if it is an example of a backfire, is perhaps trying to be a bit too keen to liberate a bishop. So let's see, Capablanca playing against Edgar Colle, who by the way had quite a few international tournament achievements, including a victory in Scarborough in 1927, Hastings 1928-29, and Scarborough 1930. So he was also many times Belgian chess champion prior to this game, in the years leading up to this game, and even immediately 1926 to 29. So let's see. So Capablanca against Edgar Colle, d4, knight f6. We saw the Nimzo Indian defense being used here, and Capablanca reacts with now queen b3. We see black giving up the bishop. Queen takes c3. Knight e4 now, gaining a tempo. Queen c2. And in this position, we see the move d5. We've already gone off the beaten tracks actually a little bit. If we just quickly rewind this position, usually black isn't so keen to take on c3 for this tempo gain. Black is usually playing c5 in this position. That's the most common. So we've gone off the beaten track with this immediate capture. And after queen c2, the knight really has to be supported some way. So we see d5 to support the knight. Is it a little bit loose? Will it be kicked back later? Let's see. Knight f3. Black castles. e3. Now knight c6 looks as though it might be designed against bishop d3 here to play knight c6. One problem with it, it doesn't really strengthen that d5 pawn. The d5 pawn is at the moment supported by the queen and the pawn here. Now I guess let's put on a bit here just to check this. The main, I think, idea here is that bishop d3, there's knight b4, and black would be a little bit better actually, taking off this light square bishop. Black would be fine. So Capablanca actually plays bishop e2, which seems quite a modest setup. Now we see rook e8, and it looks as though this bishop is a bit of a problem with the knight on c6. How to get the bishop out? Surely playing for e5 looks lucrative, so rook e8 helps support e5. If we imagine in this position instead to try and fianchetto the bishop, I think b6 weakens the c6 square here, and actually c takes d might be quite annoying, eyeing c6, but it's actually not too bad, this position for black. But anyway, black decided to try and liberate the bishop with this other method, so rook e8, and now we see Capablanca castling, and now this immediate e5 here, and you might not think there's a huge problem with this. As it turns out, this is actually quite bad in this particular position. Can you spot what Capablanca played here and why it's so strong? If I gave you 10 seconds to pause the video here. So 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, although black has liberated the bishop, there's always usually a good motive for the opponents doing something, but sometimes these motives can backfire. And here we see actually Capablanca just playing actually c takes d5, in fact. And there's a problem with this knight, actually. Well, black actually felt so bad about this position he resigned, so let's try and discover why. First of all, let's rule out knight b4. It's not actually possible here because of queen takes e4. There's nothing clever for black here. If e takes, we could just play even queen takes in this position. We don't really want to do anything else because then d takes e3. Just allow this to happen. Knight c2, queen d3, and we're going to be winning this knight because it's going to be a big material advantage. and we've won a pawn in the centre as well. That's just unacceptable for black. It's a massive advantage for white, that position. So c takes d, knight b4 is ruled out, which leaves actually mainly queen takes d5 to consider to protect the knight. And can you see what white would play here, which is so strong, so very, very strong in this position? If I give you 10 seconds in this position. Okay, just bishop c4 here. It's the queen has to protect the knight in this position. So if the queen moves to d7, we can just snap off, or d6, we just snap off the knight without too many bad consequences at all. You know, e takes d, we can play all sorts of things. We can play queen f4 here, and we just snaps up a piece. So where else can the queen go? Not many other places. So the only thing black can really try is attacking white's queen in return. So let's have a look. Knight b4, which in turn promises to attack the rook after. So, but white in this position has two very, very strong moves. Can you find possibly what is the absolute strongest? There's two almost equally strong moves in this position, which actually exploits some loose pieces. To give you a clue here. So if I give you 10 seconds starting from now, what would you play here? Okay, well, this knight is actually loose and this rook's loose, so actually either queen b3 or queen a4 is good. Queen b3 actually has the virtue of setting up a battery on f7, but queen a4 is also pretty good as well. Now it's on the e8 rook, so taking here is a disaster. Queen takes e8, so black is actually losing a piece here once the queen moves back. To try and defend the rook, we can just take a piece simply. That's one way of winning this position, but also just queen b3 sets up the attack on the loose piece, and also f7. It's a real pain. This is really unfortunate. It's kind of a weakness of the last move from rook e8 as well, that it neglected f7, and you see that in this position. If the black queen tries to support now this knight with, say, queen d6, then we leave f7 vulnerable to bishop takes f7, and this is just a total disaster. If king f8, we can just take that rook, and then even worse, after we can even take on e5, and the queen has to try and hold on to the b4 knight, for example, like this, and it's just a total disaster in this position. And in fact, the two loose pieces can be celebrated now. The knight on e4 can be attacked. It's just a huge advantage for white after this queen b3 as well. Where else can the black queen go to? If it just goes to d7, then we just snap off the knight on b4. So it did seem that black had a problem piece on e4 here, that actually the logical looking e5, just trying to liberate the bishop, really did backfire because of loose pieces around after c takes d5. The other thing to consider, of course, is moving. If we move the knight, then we just take this one. So the pawn just takes that knight. So it's total disaster after c takes d5 in this position, and it is actually the shortest tournament victory on record for the great Capablanca. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.